So he's officially gone. Aleksej Pokusevski is officially gone. And it's kind of like it's one of those things where I'm like, I don't really think that it's any way relevant for the totality of the NBA. I don't think anyone really cares about a player like a Pokusevski, somebody that was as poor as he was throughout the entirety of his career. But I do think that it just shows that these players that are almost unicorn players that really need time to develop, a lot of it depends on the situation, because I liken his just physical tools, the way he can play the game, and he's one of those guys where if he puts it all together, bulked up a bit, he becomes instantly a real decent NBA player. And if you guys agree with it, subscribe. We're trying to 222 subscribers by the end of the day. There's only 3 more to go. But that's the whole thing when it comes to an Aleksej Pokusevski, is I compare him to this guy right here. And it's a guy that we saw in the Olympics absolutely just dominate. Like, we saw this year's one of the best players in the entire Olympics, especially through the group stage. Heck, he had 30 on USA, was the monster that is Bruno Caboclo. But if you guys saw Bruno Caboclo coming into the NBA, you guys would not think that this guy had anything for him. Like, he was a twig. Like, Bruno Caboclo was not physically ready to be in the NBA when he was there. Just like Pokusevski. Obviously, Poku's not quite as skinny as Caboclo, but he's still very, very skinny, Bruno. Caboclo's not quite as skinny as Pokusevski. But we've seen Bruno Caboclo really do well in the G League, but we've also seen him after leaving the NBA. Like, he left the NBA in 2021, and since then has balled out in Germany. He was all Euro Cup second team, Bundesliga champion, all Bundesliga first team. He balled out. He's now balling out, or not necessarily balling. He's playing well for Partizan Belgrade, and he's found his career again. He's a EuroLeague player, averaging 10 points a game, and balled out in the Olympics. So you're looking at Bruno Caboclo. It's been 10 years since he was drafted, and it's only really now that he's becoming an NBA player. And I think that it should almost be more normalized that some of these players maybe take a little bit longer to develop. And I just think when it comes to Pokusevski, I think he's somebody that he won't be back in the NBA, but I do think in 5 years' time, we're going to be looking at Pokusevski playing in an international tournament for Serbia and thinking like, oh my God, was this guy not supposed to be unbelievable? Like, he's 22 years old. He's 22, and this is not Dragan Bender. This is not a guy who is, like, absolutely just not good enough. Simply put, when it came to Dragan Bender, it wasn't any of the physicality. He just wasn't good enough. At the same time, when it came to Pokusevski, I don't think, as far as his attitude is concerned, his attitude was the greatest thing in the world. But he was fine at the NBA level. He's a guy who 3 years ago, people were looking at like, oh my God, how did we get this guy at 16? Like, in the 2020 draft, he's someone that in hindsight probably falls maybe out of the first round. But if you were redrafting the 2020 NBA draft in 2020 or 2021, like after their rookie years, like, I'm looking at this draft right here, and especially because of the potential people thought Pokusevski had, he goes above James Wiseman. The way people were talking about it, it was like, obviously, yeah, Anthony Edwards, LaMelo Ball. People were talking about, and Halliburton, obviously, as a rookie, was really high. But the way you were talking about Poku, he was, without question, no one would have had him lower than 10 after his rookie season. That is the promise that he showed. But it was just, he never managed to make that leap as the Thunder were getting better. So you can see the rookie season. He started 28 games as a rookie. He started 25 games of the 34 he played in the season before, albeit is a team not necessarily trying to win games. But you can see, obviously, he had some bad games, but he had some real good games as a rookie. He shot the ball badly. Even in the 2022-23 season, his percentages were not good, but like bordering on passable, with 5 rebounds a game, so, and 1.3 blocks. Like, he was showing he could have been an NBA player, and then it just went so wrong so quickly, and he's gone. it is kind of crazy just when we're looking at the league, how quickly they'll throw away players that have that potential. But yet some players just manage to stick with it. Like we're still seeing James Wiseman hanging on based on the potential that he obviously does not have. Whereas a Pokusevski is chewed up and split out right away. But there are also other players we've seen. And there are a lot of guys that we've seen in that mold of like a needs to be developed. And I think it should be normalized almost. It should be normalized playing a little bit longer in the G League. I think not even drafting and stashing. I think it almost at times should be normalized that like if you're not there after 2 years, let's say Poku's not there after 2 years, leaving on good terms with the team and just be like after 2 years, look, we can cancel your contract right now. You can go back to Europe, but you can come back. But like in 2 years' time, once you bulk up, once you're ready, more ready for the NBA, we'll bring you back. And that's the thing when you're drafting a lot of these young players, is that sometimes it's not that they're busts. Like, Pokusevski will go down as a draft bust. Bruno Caboclo will go down as a draft bust. But you've seen right now by the way they're playing, they're not busts. Like, they're not busts as basketball players. They just came into a situation, they weren't NBA ready, and it took them too long to get NBA ready, and the NBA just tossed them aside, because that's how ruthless the league is, which is fine. But I do think that NBA teams should be looking at those guys when they go away. You should be looking at, for example, a Real Madrid, a Jenan Musa. You should be looking at a Poku in a couple of years' time, or like Bruno Caboclo, because these are players that, yeah, maybe it didn't click for them right away in the NBA. They go back to Europe, they're absolutely balling. They're 10 times more NBA ready right now than they were when they were drafted and they were sent back, and then maybe it's time to take them back. And I'm almost certain Poku's going to be one of those guys. One of those guys where it's going to click from. And we've seen it in the NBA where sometimes it clicks with guys throughout the history. It might click in year 5 or year 6. And players aren't getting that anymore. If it takes more than 2 to 3 years for it to just click, all the potential in the world doesn't matter. They're gone. So I think teams need to be more proactive in the European market for free agents, especially when it comes to players like these, because there are so many really good players. Like we saw with Yabusele, he just needed to get back into shape a little bit. I think Cordinier could be a good NBA player. It's just trying to scout, and maybe not necessarily in the NBA, because you can get much better contracts. Like for you to get a good backup in the NBA, in a lot of situations, in most positions, you're paying 7 or 8 million a year. Whereas you can get a good backup for a lot cheaper than that from Europe if they're willing to come over. So anyway, yeah, that is the video. Poku's out of the league. I really hope that NBA teams are keeping tabs on him, because I think the potential's still there. He just needs to bulk up. He needs to become a better NBA player, and he's not going to be a better NBA player riding the bench. Going to Partizan, working his way into their rotation, hopefully doing well in EuroLeague. And I can see in 2 to 3 years him being in a position where it's like, no, this is a good NBA player. We got to go get him. And that's the video. Thank you guys for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe.